Welcome to Issues That Matter. I'm Cynthia Pooler. My guest today is Curtis Mayfield, and Curtis is running.
Oh,
Curtis May.
Darius Mayfield.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Darius. I was thinking of the singer. Um, Darius
Yeah,
Mayfield.
he's a distant relative.
He's what?
He's a distant
He,
relative.
he is. That's cool. Uh, and and Darius is running for Congress in the state of New Jersey, and he's here to talk about the migrant crisis. It's interesting because I think of Darius and I think of Hootie and the Blowfish
I
and
get that too.
and, and Mayfield, Curtis Mayfield. Okay. So you're a popular dude then.
Something like that.
Okay, so you're running for Congress.
Yeah.
And you live right next to New York, and New York, New York City has been talked about as the sanctuary city, that it's really, a lot of migrants and it's busting the budgets and there's crime and everything. So what's it like in your district in New Jersey?
Yeah, I mean, in New Jersey, we've actually, this migrant crisis didn't just start 3 years ago here in New Jersey. I'll give you an example. Trenton, New Jersey, which is the capital of New Jersey, is in my district. If you go back, let's say 15, 20 years ago, Trenton was majority actually Black Americans, probably 70, 80, maybe even 90% in Trenton, New Jersey. Today, it's a little bit less than 50% Black Americans and mostly Hispanics, specifically Guatemalans in Trenton. And we know a lot of the people, a lot of the Hispanics in Trenton, like a lot of other places, are illegal migrants that the Democratic mayors in place like Trenton have facilitated into coming into these towns and displacing a lot of traditional and foundational Americans out. Same thing we saw in New Brunswick, where I was born and raised. New Brunswick I was born in New Brunswick, New Jersey at St. Peter's Hospital. I lived in a new apartments right across the street from the projects, which were huge towers, maybe 30-story high towers. Some about a decade or so back, they knocked those down. They displaced everybody that was in those buildings, and those were pretty much predominantly Black Americans. We don't know where a lot of those people have gone, but if you go to downtown New Brunswick nowadays, you see nothing but a lot of Mexican businesses set up all over New Brunswick right now. We know a lot of those people down there are illegal migrants. So this problem didn't just start 3 years ago for the people of New Jersey and places like Trenton and places like Plainfield, New Jersey, and places like New Brunswick, New Jersey. This has been an ongoing problem, and this is one of the reasons why, especially Black Americans, are not happy right now because it seems as though initially when a lot of these people first come here, they usually send them to and get set up in a lot of these Black and brown, predominantly Black and brown areas because those are considered safe zones and things of that sort. So people, especially Black Americans, have been dealing with this problem for quite some time, and it's even worse because in a lot of these neighborhoods we didn't have a lot of the resources, a lot of the great schools, and things like that to begin with. In Trenton, New Jersey, right now, over 85% of the kids there, K through 12, can't read or write at a grade level. Lots of people are on government assistance, but now a lot of those people, as we see in Chicago, can't even get their government assistance anymore because they're going into the welfare office, they're going into these resource centers, and it's packed with illegal migrants.
And so when you said this has been going on for a while, when do you think this problem actually started?
Well, there's no way to pinpoint exactly, but I believe it started, and I'm not going to blame one specific person, but I believe it started when our government decided that they weren't going to enforce our border laws. They weren't going to enforce our immigration laws, and when they started characterizing people that did want to enforce those things as racist, as bigots, as demagogues, and things of that sort. So this is something that's gone on through the Obama administration, through the Bush administration, through the Clinton administration. But as I said, just in New Brunswick alone, maybe I forget exactly when he knocked those towers down, maybe 15 years ago, or so. But again, there was also an illegal migrant crisis happening in downtown New Brunswick even before that. So this has been going on for decades now, not just in New Jersey, not just in New York. It's been happening in LA. It's been happening in Texas. It's been happening in Chicago. Again, a lot of urban centers in this country where we've seen a disproportionate amount of illegal migrants being dropped off in those towns, getting resources that are supposed to be reserved for foundational Americans, actual American citizens. So this has been a long running problem, but we haven't seen it to this degree until this administration. Even Barack Obama, who they called the deporter in chief, deported over 1 million illegal migrants in this country. Even he had the sense to understand that when it came to these communities, illegal migration really destroys these communities. He had the sense to even know that. President Trump, obviously, we started having the lowest border crossings that we've ever had in our lifetime. And then come the Biden-Harris administration, we have the most amount of legal border crossings that we've ever had in our lifetime. So we've never, even though it's been going on for quite some time, at a slower pace, we've never seen it like what it is now under this current administration.
So do you think in November, the illegal aliens in your district, will they be voting?
Listen, there's no way to really tell right now, but I would say it's definitely possible. I've seen some stories, especially here in New Jersey and around the country, where they are starting to clean up voter rolls, where they found tens of thousands of illegal voters on those rolls. We know just a few years ago, New York City tried to pass a law that would make it legal for non-citizens to vote in their local elections. While they're sitting here telling us all that this is conspiracy theories, they actually tried to pass a law that would have allowed non-citizens to vote in local elections. Thank God the New York Supreme Court came down and threw that out. Therefore, that did not become law, and they are not allowed to do that. But listen, in 2022, when I ran the first time, I became the first county in American history to have every single Dominion machine shut off on the day of election. That's something that before that happened, if I would have talked about it in a certain way, they would have called me a conspiracy theory. I think it's the same thing when it comes to illegal migrants voting in our elections. They'll tell you you're a conspiracy theorist, and they'll say it ad nauseum. But at the end of the day, we have plenty of examples. We have plenty of news reports, plenty of things happening that show this is something that has happened. This is something that is continuing to happen, and we need to clean our voter rolls, and we need to pass legislation to make sure it's an absolute certainty that it never does happen again.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that? What happened to the machines?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know for sure because the Dominion absolved themselves from responsibility. So did our county clerk and the commissioners. What they explained in the end was that it was basically a miscommunication between the county clerk and Dominion and what she wanted them to do, which ended up messing up how the ballots were being read. So there was error messages coming up when the ballots were actually read. They didn't program those ballots the right way. They've each, again, absolved themselves of responsibility. But at the end of the day, all I know is at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning on election day in 2022, I started getting phone calls right away of people being turned away from polling stations, which is illegal. You're not allowed to turn people away from polling stations. Things where they didn't know if they were going to go to emergency ballots, provisional ballots. So it was just a mess. Everybody was confused, and a lot of people were disenfranchised on that day and never got the chance to vote.
And did they ever um, unite and form a coalition to air their grievance?
Well, there's been plenty of groups that have plenty of lawsuits that have been filed. Is there any resolution that would be considered acceptable to people like myself at this point? No, because we also know it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of resources and a lot of effort to do those things. A lot of people ask me why I didn't sue the county and things of that sort, because it takes hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to actually even go into proceedings like this. And I'm a grassroots candidate. I'm a grassroots campaign. So what we have done is, we've around New Jersey, not just in my district, but all around, I give a lot of credit to places like Morris County that have really been focusing on cleaning their voter rolls over the last few years since a lot of this stuff started happening. We have a lot of training going on for challengers, which is one of the things that we identified, especially in places like Mercer County where the machines did go off, that we need challengers that are trained up, that know what to look out for and not afraid to call it out on the day of election right there at the ballot box and things of that sort. So right now, I know a lot of people in New Jersey are focusing on one, cleaning the voter rolls, and two, providing extensive training, which we actually have one this Saturday, I believe, at the College of New Jersey. We're bringing a lot of volunteers together, along with the Women of Mercer County and as well as the Ewing Republican Club, and we're going to be doing a challenger training as well as knocking doors and a volunteer training for Election Day.
Okay, nobody has a crystal ball, but
Yeah.
everybody's watching what's going on. They watch the news, they watch stuff on the internet. Let me give you two different scenarios, and you let me know what will happen in the election for president. If Trump wins, what's going to happen with the border crisis?
Well, if I would say when Trump wins, because I believe personally that there's no way he loses the election, whether it's just on pure gut, or if it's you're watching the polls and seeing how he's surging right now all across the country, especially in battleground states right now, something that the media is trying to bury. But we see what's happening, and I hear from the people. I had a Jewish couple come up to me the other day at an event and tell me that they've voted Democrat all their lives, but this time around they'll be voting for President Trump and myself. So that's happening everywhere in the Black community, in the Jewish community, in the Hispanic community. And I believe when Trump does get in office on day one, we will shut the border down and close the border. He will then, I believe, begin to once again negotiate with his Mexican counterparts, where we can start to institute something resembling the stay in Mexico policy that we had when he was there, requiring Mexico to send thousands of their military troops to their border to protect that side of the border, something that we had never seen until President Trump was in office. And I believe that President Trump will work with people like myself in the House of Representatives to make sure we can pass a stay in Mexico as federal legislation, not just a presidential executive order. And then I think he will give the order to make sure that our border patrol, our sheriffs down on the southern border, and everybody else involved in keeping our border secure understand that they are now allowed to do their job. They are now allowed to enforce the laws on the books, every single one of them, and he'll let them get to work.
So right now, you don't think that's happening. You don't think they're able to enforce the law.
No, I know they're not. I've been to the border 4 times personally myself. And over the last couple of times we went out there, I actually have a small documentary on my campaign page at DariusMayfield4America.com, where you can see our documentary of our time at the border. And one of those videos, you'll see Border Patrol and me specifically asking them, are you allowed to do your job, or are you giving other ordinances, other instructions? And they tell me point blank, we are not allowed to enforce the law, and we are being given other orders, basically to stand down, to basically let people into the country, process them at the border, and essentially release them into the country. So I have that documented with Border Patrol. I've talked to other Border Patrol who have said the same thing, and that's just the reality of it. You can see it happening all over. I mean, when you see 30,000, let's say, people dropped off in a town of 60,000 people, you understand something's not right. People are being settled in areas all around this country illegally. And they'll tell you it's legal because they have things like the app that this administration created to assist parolees and those seeking asylum from other countries, an app that we've never had before in this country, where it's really being taken advantage of. And people that have a lot of criminal and violent backgrounds are coming into this country. We just saw a report the other day where over 500,000 criminally convicted illegal migrants are now in this country. Over 10,000 of them were convicted of murders. So this is a huge, huge, huge problem. And I think, this administration, once Donald Trump takes the reins, once people like myself ascend to Congress, we will work together and we will fix this problem once and for all.
Okay. The other scenario is, from your perspective, if Harris wins, what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think if Harris wins this election, which she won't, so everybody out there stay calm. But if she were, in some unfathomable scenario, win this election, and I've been actually having this conversation quite a bit lately, I think it will be disaster and tumultuous all around, and not just at our southern border. I think what's happening in the Middle East right now will rapidly spiral out of control because what happens, and as we know, not only do our adversaries not respect weakness, neither do our allies in places like Israel. Because part of the reason why things are allowed to go as they are, and the reason things are happening is because nobody in this situation, not Israel, not Lebanon, not Syria, not Iran. Nobody has respect for the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris administration. I think Kamala Harris comes off as a very unserious person. And, a lot of that is displayed in her cackling and her laughing. I know people like to make fun of her cackling and things like that. And I'm not necessarily making fun of her actually cackling and how it sounds. It just, to me, speaks to a deeper problem of how unserious she actually is when you can sit there and laugh and cackle at the most serious issues, and pretty much make people feel like it's not of that much importance to you. So I think the problem in the Middle East is going to spiral out of control. I think if Kamala was to win, you're probably going to see a never-ending scenario with the Russia-Ukraine war that's going on right now, where Russia will essentially pretty much move forward with occupying that entire country if that's what they feel they want to do. And when it comes to our southern border, I mean, we don't even have to try to guess what's going to happen because we've literally seen it happen over the last 4 years. Kamala Harris was the border czar for this administration. As much as they try to downplay that and walk that back now, she was the border czar. I was there and we all saw it when it was announced all over the media, and she took charge of that position and claimed that position. Well, since she became the border czar, we have literally let in a record amount, over a million almost each month. I know you remember this when this administration first started. Every single month, it was a new record set of how many people were being occupied at the southern border. This is a problem of the most significant extent. And one of my worries is nowadays, because of the media gaslighting people, and trying to subdue people's conscience and take away their critical thinking skills, a lot of people sometimes don't recognize how significant what they've allowed to happen at our southern border is. But we see the ramifications from it. We see it in places like Aurora, Colorado. We see it in New York City. We now see it in Chicago, where you have black gangs going up against Venezuelan gangs. And those black gangs, who are pretty notorious and ruthless themselves, are now saying that the level of atrocities that Venezuelan gangs are willing to commit is something they've never seen before. This is a very, very dangerous and serious situation. And I believe that if Kamala Harris was to win this election, you're pretty much going to continue to see all the problems you see now, from internationally to here domestically, times 10.
And it's going to break the bank of these communities in the United States. Would you agree?
Not only do I agree, I believe that it's already doing that. There's a reason why. I was just watching another city council meeting this morning in Chicago. Black Chicagoans are screaming at the rooftops that they're ready for independents and Republicans to come over there, and start seriously running for seats, local seats, federal seats, statewide seats, because they are that exasperated with what's going on over there. And it reminds me of the violence that takes place over there. Every time there's a school shooting in this country, even whether it's 10 people shot or 20 or 30 people shot, it's all over the news. It's everywhere. Well, over in Chicago, you literally have dozens and dozens of people shot almost every single day. There's a mass shooting in a place like Chicago almost every single week, but you barely hear about it nationally. The same thing is happening with this migrant crisis right now. You're catching on a couple of stations here and there, especially the local stations, but you don't see it nationally that these people are crying out for help. I saw an alderman in Chicago go on TV a couple months ago, and her words verbatim were, if you were independent, if you are a Republican running for office, right now is your time to run for office in the city of Chicago and the surrounding areas. We've never heard anything like that. The reason why we were hearing this, the number one reason why we are hearing this, is because of how disastrous the migrant crisis is and how their resources are being sucked up in the city of Chicago and places like Aurora, Colorado, and places like New York City, where they're shutting down five-star hotels to house these migrants, shutting down kids' soccer fields, shutting down kids' schools to house these migrants, and taking away the resources of foundational Americans and actual American citizens.
You know, it's a crisis. It's a crisis that absolutely amazes me, and how economically, fiscally, we're being drained of everything we've got. And I'm afraid that if this is made to continue, it's gonna get worse and worse. Well, we won't even know what America looks like anymore. You know, I'm a child of immigrants. My grandparents came here from Italy, but you know, they did it the right way. A lot of people do it the right way, but yet a lot of people are doing it not the right way, and they're getting a pat on the back, and it's okay that they're doing it. That to me really bothers me.
Yeah, and just to go back to your point of, spending a lot of money and resources, being run dry, you're absolutely right. I mean, in Ukraine, we spent now what, $100+ billion. In Israel, we spent almost $20 billion. In Lebanon now, we just spent over sent over $100 million over there. And then we have Mr. Mayorkas going on public TV and telling us that we're running out of money for FEMA. We may not have enough money to cover the disasters that are coming our way in this country. It's not about not wanting to take care of people outside of this country and wanting to help out, but it's about putting our priorities straight and getting our priorities straight. And our priority has to be Americans. That's why one of my taglines is it's time to retire the past and elect leaders ready to put Americans and America first. Some people, when I put up that post like that, somebody said to me, that's wrong for you to say that because it shouldn't be a choice between, America and Lebanon and, FEMA and, what we send to American aid come from two different budgets. And they're absolutely correct. That wasn't the point. The point is the priority. It was a dereliction of duty for Mayorkas to even come out and say something like that. Rather than coming out and making such a heinous statement, you probably should have put your head down, went back into your office, went to work, and figured out a way to make sure that FEMA was funded, because that's your job, especially when you so easily sit here and pass billion-dollar bills back to back to back to send money to Ukraine, to send money to Israel, to send money to Lebanon, and everywhere else in the world. We've never heard them sit there and say that we don't have enough money to fund these foreign wars, or we don't have enough money to fund our foreign partners' interests. We've never heard those words from a sitting official in our administration, in our executive administration. But yet, these guys feel okay enough to actually say that with a straight face to the American people, the same people that they serve and the same people that contribute the money for them to be able to send this money overseas to these foreign wars and to these foreign countries. To me, it was disgusting. It's a dereliction of duty, and that in itself really is disqualifying for not only Mayorkas, but pretty much everybody in this administration to keep going down this road.
So, Darius, if people want to volunteer for your campaign, or make a contribution, how could they do so?
Well, to make a contribution, and see about my policies and read up on the campaign and volunteer, you can go to Darius Mayfield for America.com, and that's FOR. And if you really want to volunteer and get direct access to us, you can actually email my campaign manager at Yamira. That's YAMIRA, the number four, Darius at gmail.com. So that's Yamira for Darius at gmail.com.
Darius, thank you so much. Yeah, I really enjoyed this because, I live in New York. I live upstate New York, but
I used to live in Rochester.
oh wow. Um, so I'm very interested. The I interviewed somebody the other day who lives in Brooklyn. Who said that
Mm,
the crisis is very bad. So I wanted to get a feel from many congressional candidates on their views on it, and we'll see what happens.
yes,
It's gonna
ma'am.
be it's gonna be a nail biter for sure.
It will, well, listen, all I could say to the American people is stand back and stand by because help is on the way. I know the media is trying to make us think this will be a nail biter, and some people believe that, but I will tell you this. I believe this is going to be a Reagan-esque type victory on November 5th. Again, it's not just Republicans that are fed up, it's Black Americans, it's Hispanic Americans, it's female Americans, it's even Muslim Americans. You've seen the Muslim mayor of the only fully occupied Muslim town in this country where their council, their board, everybody's Muslim. That Muslim Democrat mayor came out and endorsed Donald Trump last week. We have some endorsements coming from some unfathomable places. I know I forget his name, but a very reputable former congressman in Florida, Democratic congressman, just came out yesterday and endorsed Donald Trump. These things aren't happening by circumstance. This is not happening just because. This is happening because people understand what they're seeing. People are waking up and they want something different and they don't want their country to keep going this way. So I would just tell everybody again to might be controversial when Donald Trump said it, but stand back and stand by. Help is on the way, and we're gonna right this ship. I promise you. And once they let somebody like me into the House of Representatives, there's no letting up.
Thank you, Darius. You've been listening to Darius Mayfield. I'm Cynthia Pooler. This is Issues That Matter. If you like this show, please subscribe to my YouTube page. Thank you, Darius, for being on
Thank you.
my show, and thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.